Hey, geography guys, it is Mr. Backus. It is Unit 1, Lesson 2. Last class was 1.1. We talked about maps. Today, we're going to be talking about why maps are so weird. Specifically, why are the shapes of places so weird on maps? So the Bellwork question is going to be, what's the weirdest border you know about? You don't have to answer that until class. But think about that in advance. What are some of those weird borders around the world, whether it's a state, a country, a city? But what's a weird border to you? So, for example, the one on the screen, the border in green there, that is Russia. But maybe you never knew that Russia gets its own like extra little part that's out in the middle of nowhere, seemingly from the rest of Russia. So those are the types of things we're going to be talking about when we look at Bellwork. Why in the world does Russia have a piece of Russia outside of Russia? So first, let's talk about why borders are made. Really, there's two big reasons why people make borders. First, there's a natural border that they ran into. Human beings have been making borders for a long time. The most effective ones are usually water, mountains, or deserts. Specifically, water. 70% of natural borders, I made that up, but I think it's probably right. 70% of natural borders are water-based borders. Think no further than the United States. All of the East Coast states, whether you are in Massachusetts, go down to Virginia, Florida, all of those states, California on the West Coast, Alaska, one of their primary borders is going to be the ocean. Whether it's the Atlantic on the east or Pacific in the west, oceans are probably the most effective border in the world. Mountains often form borders. In the US, we don't have a ton of mountain borders. However, Idaho and Montana, actually a big part of the reason their border is that long chimney looking thing for Idaho is because it runs on the side of a mountain range. So we do have some states influenced by mountains. But you see that more in other countries around the world. So like India and China are the two largest countries based on population. They have 3 billion people between the two of them. They don't fight. Why don't they? Well, the Himalayan mountains are a really effective border. And then lastly, we also have deserts. So you are walking, you're claiming land, you get to the edge of a desert and you say, nah, I don't need to take over anymore. Seems hot, seems dry, seems like it's not a good use of my time. So natural borders are all over the place. Kentucky obviously has a natural border. The entire northern border of the state is the Ohio River. So again, the most common example of a natural border are those water borders. Second, there are cultural borders. Cultural borders are decided by language or religions. Sometimes they're also defined by just geometric boundaries. And if you look at the Western US, you'll notice a lot of the shapes of states start to become more square. And that's because people started making more cultural borders. It became very popular in the 1800s. So for example, our border with Canada, even though there are natural borders on the east side, all the Great Lakes make up these nice natural water borders with Canada. We got a little lazy as we moved west, and we have this big straight line, this cultural border that Canada and the United States agreed upon. It's not that there's a straight river or a mountain range on that border with Canada. It's just we knew that we wanted some of it, they knew they wanted some, and we had to come to an agreement to keep the two pieces of land separate. So those are the two primary ways that borders are made. I really need you to focus in and know the three primary natural borders: water, mountains, and deserts. So when you make a country or a state, you're going to obviously see a resulting shape. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is sort of the 5 different shapes of different countries or states that can form from these borders. So here are the 5. Looking down the side, I went in order, I think, from maybe easiest to hardest, but at the same time, fragmented can be pretty easy as well. So we'll dig into them. Come into class with any questions you might have. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So elongated states are going to be the first one we look at. They are long and narrow in their shape. So if you look at Chile, for example, the bottom right-hand picture, and I drew a little arrow pointing to it, Chile is a great example of an elongated country. It is very long and it's very narrow. It has 2 natural borders. There's the Pacific Ocean on the west side, And then there's the Andes Mountains on the east side. So as a result, you have a country that's like 50 miles wide, but thousands of miles long. Elongated countries tend to struggle in terms of moving goods around. Obviously, if you wanted to get something from the north side of the country to the south side, it's going to take a long time to get the goods there. East to west, though, super easy. I mean, 50 miles takes about an hour to drive. To get from the north to the south end, you're talking like 40 hours to drive. Excuse me. Second is compact. A compact country is a country who, if you take the center of the country and then start measuring out from the center, most of the borders are about the same distance away. So Poland's an example of a compact country. A perfect compact country would be a perfect circle. Since there is no perfectly circle country, you look for countries that are closer to a circle. So Poland would certainly be one where I would guess, getting from the center, east or west, it's going to be about the same distance as if you try to do north or south. Number 3 is a corrupted country or corrupted state. If you look at Thailand, the top right picture on this slide, you'll see an example of a corrupted country. So Thailand has this long tail looking thing. Oh, all these circles stink, sorry. That tail is a corruption. It's a long extension on the end of the country. So Thailand looks fairly compact, but then that tail just throws everything off. Alaska is sort of the same way. If you look at the bottom left-hand picture, Alaska has that long tail sticking out into the Pacific Ocean. I would consider that a corruption. So if you see a country that seems like it has a long tail, we call that a corrupted country. Number 4 is fragmented countries. The US, this bottom left picture is technically showing how America is fragmented as well. If you wanted to get from one part of America all the way to another, yeah, some places you can drive, but like if you want to get from the continental US to Alaska, you'd have to drive across Canada. And because you have to leave the country to get up there, we are fragmented. We have discontinued pieces of territory we call exclaves around the world. So Hawaii and Alaska would be examples of exclaves. We own it, but it's not connected to us. Same as Puerto Rico and Guam, well, U.S. Virgin Islands, etc. So we have these different places that the U.S. controls that aren't actually connected to the rest of the country. Finally, last but not least, and there isn't a good example of a perforated country or state, but there are perforated countries. So a perforated country would be like South Africa. South Africa is a country that is fairly compact except for this big eyesore right in the middle, Lesotho. Lesotho is a compact country within South Africa. Because South Africa essentially has a hole in it, it is perforated. So 3-hole punched paper is called perforated paper. So think of it this way, we have Lesothos like punched out of South Africa, and because there's a big hole in the middle of the country, we call South Africa perforated. So Lesotho is compact because it's in the middle of South Africa, but South Africa, as a country that surrounds another, South Africa would be considered perforated. Another example of a perforated country would be like Italy. So Italy has Vatican City as a separate country completely within it. Because of that, Italy has like a hole punched out of it, meaning it's also a perforated country. Obviously, we're going to dig into this deeper when we actually meet for class, but the biggest things I need you guys to know is each of these 5 terms and what they mean. So if I gave you an example of a fragmented country, I would hope that you could figure out that it was fragmented. And I would highly recommend taking these notes and putting them in your notebook. You can use any notes you take on this slide on your homework quiz. So we'll be working with this in class. Good luck with everything. I'm glad you guys have been keeping up for the most part. Make sure you take notes and be prepared for the homework quiz 1.2 that we're going to start with next class. I'll see you later, guys.